Good evening, everyone. We have a very important guest tonight. Joining me right here is former Congressman Jim Traficant.
Robert, how are you tonight?
Oh, I'm excellent.
Yeah, it was good to hear from you and glad to be on your program. What are some of the concerns that you have?
I have a number of issues I'd like to discuss. I think another time we could talk about I'm interested in hearing about your history, but since we have a limited amount of time, I guess we can focus more on the current events. But one thing, I guess, okay, we started off, you were talking about how when you were in prison, and also you were a sheriff as well, how that's really changed your view on the whole criminal justice system. You were talking about how you met a lot of young men who've had their lives just ruined because of the drug war. Could you share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, one of the first bills I introduced when I got to Congress was a Nonviolent Offender Act. Even before I had gone to prison, I could recognize the fact that there are many people in prison that should not be in prison. In fact, it just makes them harder, makes them tougher, and they don't warrant that for many of their offenses. But there's just so many people that want to level out what they consider to be punishment. And it's gotten to the point where, for example, the U.S. Justice Department is completely out of hand. I mean, many of these cases, they're embellishing. They're making them much bigger than they are. They're making some of these people look like they're Al Capone, and they're making them kingpins, and they don't even control their own home or their own neighborhood. And it's just out of hand. I mean, there's many things that we can do. I think we should be clamping down on the border, stopping narcotics, illegal immigration, things like that. But we have wide open borders. We have heroin is easy to find as aspirin on every street corner in the United States of America. And they're putting a lot of young people in prison for particular offenses that warrant no incarceration without a doubt. And I think this is the major problem that we're having.
Yes, especially those two issues, the illegal immigration. When you were in federal prison, would you say a high percentage of the inmates were illegals?
Well, in the first place I was at was over 50% illegal immigrants incarcerated. And one of the reasons I was put there, I was warned by someone who was on the staff that told me to be very careful because many of these were Mexicans, and they knew that I was a congressman that passed authorizing the utilization of our troops, our military troops on the border to stop this illegal immigration. And I was hated there. And he said, be very careful. This person told me right straightforward, he says, you were put here because they want to see you get hurt. They'd love to see you get hurt. And I was not treated like no country club guy. I was put in some rough situations where my life was in jeopardy. But that's the name of the game with the Justice Department, that I was the only American in history to ever defeat them in a RICO trial pro se representing myself with a full jury verdict. They couldn't live with that. They could not live with that. And they had to get their pound of flesh, and they did it, and they did it illegally, and that someday I'm hoping that will come to light. But that's one of the problems that you have, and you have a situation now where people are jumping the fence. We have an Office of Homeland Security in America, and they don't support putting troops on the border. So you have one Border Patrol agent for every 2 miles of border. How the hell are you going to control the border? It's like having a neon sign at the border saying, come on over. Now you have both the Democrats and Republicans catering to the Mexican minority. It's now larger and bigger than the black minority in America. And they're all looking to get these votes. So what are they going to do? What party is going to do more for the Hispanic community? Well, even the Hispanic people, they're not crazy about having illegals jumping the fence. That doesn't help them either. Look, it's just simply the way I am about this issue. If you come into America the right way, welcome. You are one of us. If you come in the wrong way, you should be thrown the hell out. And we should be putting our troops on the border Right now, they're going to dinner over in Italy. They're going to theater in Germany. They're having lunch in Japan. They're guarding the borders in the Mideast. And our borders are wide open, and they're not going to wise up until somebody literally smuggles across the border a nuclear device and detonates it in America at one of our cities. That's how bad it's getting to be.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. But I hate to say, you're probably right. Just all the powerful interests behind the politicians want the borders open. The big banks, the big corporations. I mean, they want the cheap votes. Just all of them. You were talking the different special interests you dealt with in Congress. What would you list as, say, are the most powerful special interests in the U.S. that influence U.S. Congress?
Well, the most powerful influence on the United States Congress is Israel, the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee. No question about it. They control our foreign policy. They control much of our domestic policy now. They control the banking industry in the country. They control the media, radios, television, newspapers. And when you have that kind of power, I guess you control the government. I mean, most of the people in Washington are very careful to not get on the wrong side of Israel. But the problem is, and if you question it, you're called an anti-Semite. I'm not an anti-Semite. I've been called one, but because I brought John Demjanjuk home from Israel when he was convicted and sentenced to death for being Ivan the Terrible, and I'm the congressman to prove that he was innocent, and went over and brought him home from death row, and it's another thing that was held against me. But you see, Israel should not control our foreign policy. Nobody should control the policy, any policy, but the American people. And it's gotten that bad. I said on the Greta Van Susteren show, and I made a lot of enemies, I said that Israel has a stranglehold on the United States Congress and American government. They got us into 2 foreign wars. We have no business being involved, and we're carrying out basically their business. We're doing their bidding. And we have now imported the violence and terrorism on behalf of the fact that we have been subjective, not objective, in our policy in the Mideast. Our first president, George Washington, very wisely warned the government, the United States, to beware of foreign entanglements. Stay out of foreign entanglements. And we have not heeded his advice. And we have gone down a path that may take us to World War III, for God's sake.
Yeah, I mean, look at it right now. If Israel drags us into war with Iran, but it's just, if that's really what it takes, and what makes it even worse is not only the amount of power they have, it's by far, I think, the most taboo issue in this country to talk about the Israeli or Jewish power. You
can't. You do that. I mean, it's getting to the point where they're going to pass a law in Congress that will be considered a hate crime. They put you in prison for it. That's how bad it's getting. But, let's just look at it. American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, the most powerful lobby in the world. 3 times now they have spied on us in the last 15 years. The last 2 times, the pair that was involved influenced us to go back into Iraq. The last 2 were influencing and attempting to influence us to go into Iran. Now, they have been released and let go. Literally released. They're in prison. And these are traitors. That's a capital offense. But they were let go because Israel's our friend. Now Israel wants Jonathan Pollard released. Enough is enough now. There's no reason for Israel to be spying on us. There's no reason for our Congress to allow any foreign entity to manipulate us to the point where they place us at war. God forbid. That's how bad it's gotten. They literally have put America in position of war. Where is it going to stop?
Yeah, the sad thing is it's going to take something really horrible, like a massive world war, or just total, the economy's messed up as it is, but total economic collapse. But notice you do see some people at Occupy Wall Street are starting to wake up about that issue. What is your thoughts? What is your thoughts on Occupy Wall Street? And you've talked a lot about the Fed. I know Ron Paul had a bill to audit the Fed. You've also been spoken out on that to abolish the Federal Reserve.
Well, my speech of March 1993 was the foundation for much of all of this. And if you read it, if you get a chance, it's called The Bankruptcy of the United States of America. March 3, 1993. My speech is now being printed in books all over the world. And it's in my book. My book has just come out, America's Last Minute Man. And it'll basically lay it out for you. I don't think we should be auditing the Fed. We should abolish the Fed. There's no way anybody should control the money supply, control our money other than the Congress. The Constitution is clear on that. Congress shall coin money. Now, having said that, we've gotten to a point where international bankers have basically controlled the United States of America. They've put us at risk. And much of that is basically tied to Israel. No one wants to talk about that. But there's an awful lot of that which is hand in hand with that movement. I think it's time that Congress, number one, takes a look at our situation because we are going to implode, just like the Soviet Union did. You know, there wasn't a shot fired over there. All of a sudden we heard on the news that there was no more Soviet Union. It was over. Now, what everybody's failing to realize over here, they do not think it's possible for something like that to happen in the United States of America. And this is what makes it the most dangerous. Because as recently as a month ago, Japan, China, Russia, and France convened a secret meeting that our government is trying to deny and putting out in the press that it really didn't happen. China, Japan, Russia, and France convened a secret meeting on the dollar and not using the dollar for the purchase of oil and petroleum in concert with now Mideast sources of oil. What's happening is if the dollar is removed as the world currency reserve status, America will implode in 60 days. 60 days. We cannot maintain the debt we have and the trade deficit we have with dollars. When they stop using dollars, and America is cut out and cannot print its money no more, we just go ahead and create more and more money, put more and more debt. That's going to stop. And Russia once made the statement, and de Gaulle in France once made the statement, that America will fall and it will come through the dollar. It will not be a foreign war. And that's about what's happening, and I can see it developing right now. I've seen the Clintons cozy up to China. I've seen China go from most favored nation trade status every year on a congressional vote to a permanent most favored nation trade status. And with the giant surplus they're taking in trade from America, they're buying nuclear submarines, advanced war aircraft, missiles. We're in a tough situation here. And everybody thinks, well, you know, we're the superpower. We may be a superpower, but we're not the only power. And there is now a consortium of groups that are looking at America, recognizing the vulnerability of America, and I believe, and I have predicted in my book, that by the year 2030, America will implode. Now, I predicted that by the turn of the century, 2000, we would have a depression. And it took an extra 5 or 6 years. This is not a recession, Robert. We are in a depression. If you take food stamps, welfare, Social Security, and Medicare out of this economy, this would make 1929 look like a fender bender. This is a depression in America.
Yeah, you're right. It's a complete depression. You're saying these social programs are what's giving, sort of propping up this illusion.
Well, what's happening is in order to provide these programs, there's continuous deficit spending. And quite frankly, 43 million people in America are on food stamps. The statistics come out and said 1 out of every 15 American lives now in poverty. Where in 1979, you had 65 of American companies that had a AAA rating by Moody's. Today, there's only 4. 30 years ago, 7 of the top 10 banks in the world were American. Today, there's 1. It's over. And Washington is trying to remedy and in fact resolve the debt problem by piling on more debt. It's like trying to stop a fire by throwing on gasoline. You're not going to reverse the debt in America by accumulating more debt. And we're in trouble. Now it's come to the point where they're talking about a $1.2 trillion cut by a super committee of the Congress. I want you to imagine over 10 years what $1.2 trillion is. $1.2 trillion. A 10-year deficit scenario is over $10 trillion. Even if they cut it $1 trillion, we'll just have 9 more. It's not going to last, Robert. It's going to blow. And no one down there knows what the hell they're doing about it. There's no innovation. There's no programs. We're going on with the same income tax scenario where only 53% of the American people pay an income tax. 47% are consumers. We have a dependent society, and you're not going to change it. There's not enough votes to change this system because the people who are getting money from the government are not going to vote for anything or anybody that says they're going to stop that. That's it. It's over. It's just a matter of time. It's not if, it is when. And nobody's paying attention to the tea leaves. Nobody's reading it. Look, you had a county in Alabama, the Jefferson County down there, just filed bankruptcy with $4.1 billion in debts. That's a new record in America. It eclipsed Orange County, California, that filed bankruptcy with $1.9 billion of debt. Now you have over $160 billion of debt by the respective states. Over 40 states are having debt problems. It's over. And there's no way under the current promulgated system to raise enough money to maintain the standard of living in the amount and volume of expenditures we have with our current economic financial scheme. How many times are you going to hear they're going to cut spending and raise targeted revenue? Come on. We've been hearing that for 50 years.
Exactly. Do you have personally, I think I've heard you say something, could you come up with a plan that would solve our deficit crisis?
One of the last bills I had in Congress was in tandem with Billy Tozan and Dan Schaefer, 2 brilliant Republican members, one from Louisiana, one from Colorado. And in that bill, we abolished the Internal Revenue Service and abolished the income tax. No more withholding. And we create a flat consumption tax. Now, before everybody panics, everybody's going to say, oh, my God, it's 25%. But I want you to just listen carefully. Harvard did a study and said, when you remove the tax code and abolish all that oppressive tax scheme, companies are going to drop their prices so significantly because the cost of complying with the tax code is so powerful. For example, 25% of the cost of an American automobile is the tax code. Now, here's our tax code. Here's our cars made in America. They're loaded with 25%. We're going to ship them overseas, and they're getting hit over there. Now, these foreign cars are coming in scot-free. They don't have any load. So if they say the threshold for American automobile cost is $20,000, they can produce a car for $8,000.
Would you advocate tariffs as well?
Well, this bill would serve as a tariff because, you see, that car now that comes from overseas is going to have a 25% burden in America, just like ours has. And second of all, Our car made in America that's shipped overseas now has no load at all. You'll have American companies moving back home for the following reason. There's no more withholding. There's no more tax on savings. No tax on investment at all. No capital gains tax. No corporation tax. No tax on Social Security. No tax on Medicare. Think of this now. That 25%, everything is fully funded. Now, the Harvard study says, well, they're saying, well, what about the poor? If it's a $100 coat, now it's going to be $125. Harvard said, no, when you take the production cost off, that $100 coat that we know now is going to be $75. Everybody would pay the tax, Robert. And if people wish and choose to keep their pay stubs and go to the government, and they're under the poverty level, they would get a tax rebate, but they'd have to go to work for it unless they're physically disabled, or they would not get that money. So you see, there'd be no more IRS, no more tax courts, no more forms, no more receipts, no more attorneys, no more accountants, and people would get their whole paycheck. They would decide what to do with it. And if they decided to save money, there'd be no tax on the savings that they earned. If they decide to invest it, there'd be no tax on the investment. If they sell a used car, there'd be no tax on it. No tax on the purchase of a used car. Only on new goods and services would there be a tax. And everybody would be back to work. People would want to go to work. They don't have to hide their income. They could take it all, and they're going to get it all, and they could spend it, do what they want with it. But with that consumption flat tax, America would salvage itself with some prudent administration out of Washington. I make this statement. If they do not do this, America will implode. Now, you're seeing a couple people hitting at the edges. Now, Perry's talking about a flat income tax. What the hell do you want the income tax for? That's what the tax code is what's killed us. Kane's talking about a 999. Corporation tax, that's ridiculous. Corporation, you can tax them what you want. They're going to pass the tax on to us anyway. Think about it.
Great. Let me ask you one last question. I know you ran for Congress recently, and I know there's two political parties I've been in touch with. One of them is called the A3P, and the other one is the Citizens Party, and they've both expressed interest in drafting you. Are you considering running for some office again in the next election?
What are they considering drafting me for?
They both of them have for president mainly. The Citizens Party.
I know. I've had some people, and it's almost funny. You know, I have more baggage than Amtrak, but I will tell you this: there's nobody out there that has a program, and I'm flattered to hear these groups. I don't even know who they are. I don't know what groups you mentioned. Who'd you mention?
Citizens Party and the American Third Position Party.
American Third Position and Citizens Party. See, I don't know. No one's contacted me. I've had different people from different states that want to do something like that along those lines, but I have basically held back. I don't think we would do anything with my record. The government hates me so damn much. But I'll tell you something. My program will work, and it's the only program out there. These politicians have no program. They have no vision. They have no innovation. And all they're doing is tinkering with the same failing mechanism. We don't need to tinker with this tax code. We're going to throw it the hell out. We don't need the Fed. Throw it out. We don't need a Department of Education. Let the school boards and let the state handle it. Throw it out. We don't need a Department of Energy. We have more dependence on foreign oil. We created it. Throw it the hell out and have a small group to monitor petroleum activities. We don't need a big, extensive environmental protection agency. Set standards. Have a small group. Let the states conduct it and handle it. These are the United States of America, not the central government of America. And quite frankly, the states have become background music in the doctor's office, and that's what's wrong with the country. And it started with the 17th Amendment. I not only recommend abolishing and repealing the 16th Amendment, but also repealing the 17th Amendment, which made popular votes for United States senators. And the old Constitution, Robert, the state legislatures appointed the two United States senators. And those senators were concerned about their state because if they weren't, they're going to be thrown the hell out. Now they're all over the country running for president, worried about New Hampshire, worried about Iowa. And the states have gone to hell. And it shouldn't be that way. And it's time to bring back America, back to the foundation, throw a lot of these programs out. Office of Homeland Security. This is a joke with borders wide open. This is an absolute joke. Beam me up.
Well, that was an excellent interview, I have to say. So I'd like to thank you for being on.
Well, thank you for having me, Robert. Give me a call next week, whatever, let me know, and I'll be glad to talk to you more fully.
Okay, so
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks again. We'll be right back for more after the break.
All right, Robert.